Good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth held on Monday, November 1st, 2021. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and any experts who've been nominated to come to this meeting and present to us this evening. I invite your decorum. I advise that I do have attendance regrets from Councillor Richardson tonight. Let us move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with pecuniary interest, including those who have already declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect, if not already done, in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. And we'll begin tonight with Councillor Anstead. Welcome, Anstead. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. This evening, through you, I will be declaring a pecuniary interest on item 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare, as my son attends the St. Mary's daycare, and also on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. I believe next up is Councillor Behrens. Welcome, Councillor Behrens.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. Through you, I will declare a conflict of interest on 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare accounts for the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center, as I have grandchildren attending the center as well as after-school programming. In addition, I would declare a conflict on 5.7.2, the Howick 11 municipal drain, as I have family members that are assessed on that drain, and subsequent to those two, 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. Deputy Mayor Kellum is next.
Welcome. Yes, thank you. Welcome. Good to see you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I'd like to declare pecuniary interest on item 5.5.1, the accounts. Through Perth Meadows, as my mother and father-in-law are tenants there as well. The daycare is my grandson attends, so then consequently the 13.1 confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Kellum. Are any other councillors wishing to make a declaration at this hour? We're not seeing any evidence of that at this point. So that allows us to move forward to explain our virtual processes. Tonight, I'll be systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us for consideration. I will do this to some degree alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source, and frankly, so much more. Clerk's doing a lot tonight. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental comment or question without intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the speaking list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors are reminded that if you're not audible, I will call on you. I'll let you know. Councillors are further asked to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of your votes not show up in our online voting technology, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, and then return to mute. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting. It reads simply as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Why don't we start tonight with Councillor Duncan? Will you serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I'll move that motion.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder?
I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move on to item 3 on our agenda. This is the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on council's agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require council's recognition and action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are 7 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items for further discussion or action? Please indicate in the chat window if so. We're not seeing anything at this point, so I have a motion for our consideration that reads as follows: that consent items 3.1 to 3.7 be received for information, and the minutes of the October 25th, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted. Would I call on Councillor Johnston to be a mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that.
Thank you. And can I call on Councillor Rothwell, the other boy from Britain, to be our seconder?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And we're missing one.
Councillor Johnston here. My vote didn't pop up.
Okay, well, that's who it is.
I'm
then.
in favor.
Thank you. And so with that, that is carried. Thank you very much. Now let's move forward then to item 4 on our agenda this evening. We have no public meetings scheduled for tonight's meeting. Also, we have no delegations that have asked for an audience with council this evening, which allows us to move down the agenda to item 5, reports from departments and key staff. We have no reports from the CAO's department for tonight's meeting. The CAO is actually vacationing this week, and that's a good thing for him. Let's move forward to item 5.2, reports from the clerk's department. For item 5.2.1, council was asked to adopt a bylaw to amend a subdivision agreement with Dolmetsch Holdings pertaining to lands in Atwood. I'm going to call first on North Perth Clerk Pat Bearfels to introduce this report, and she may call on others at her discretion. Just let me get the AV settings right so we don't create a hole. Hold on.
Good evening, Council. Tonight before you is amendments to a subdivision agreement previously adopted by North Perth Council. I have received a summation from the lawyer who was available and provided the amendments to this agreement, as well as the bylaw before you. It has been noted that there is a typo in the second paragraph of this particular bylaw that acknowledges Emerald Green. We do know that should say Dolmage Holdings, and that will be corrected before the mayor and I sign the bylaw. Going forward with the agreement, as it's stated, most of the amendments are not necessarily in the body of the amending agreement. However, they are acknowledged in Schedule B that deals with some items under removing pins and having them move to phase 2 and assigning a new block number, removing of block 27 from phase 1 because it's no longer required, move blocks 1, 2, and 4 and part of Saunders Street, phase 3 to phase 2. And then there's been some reserve blocks along the northern boundaries of block 3 and 6. I'm certainly not a planner, and we do have Sally from the county as well as representatives from Dolmage Holdings. I'm just taking this opportunity to let you know what has been amended. Again, in Schedule 8, it's been amended to include easements and dedications required by the municipality. Schedule K has been amended to include the new block and stage numbering from paragraph 20, and that's been added with the conditions of draft plan approval. And the Schedule M has also been amended to include the new block and stage numbers for the multi-residential lot fronting onto Main Street. As I've said, Sally McMullen is available to speak, as well as Brian McMurn on behalf of the applicant. If council deems it appropriate at this time, I would like to recommend that we would call on both of them to, number one, present or clarify what I've just said, and council would be able to ask them questions.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Bearfelds. At this time, maybe comments from Ms. McMullen, who's joined us. Welcome, Ms. McMullen.
Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of council. It's nice to see you all.
Ms. McMullen, can you hear us?
Can you hear me? You can't hear me?
Ms. McMullen, did you want to offer any comments? Okay, try again, Sally.
Are you able to hear me?
There we go, thank you.
Great, okay. All right, good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of council. The subdivision amendments in front of you tonight are very technical in nature, and they reflect the changes that the developer has asked for with respect to block numbering and the delineation of the phasing for this subdivision. The fundamentals in the subdivision are not changing. Things such as the street pattern or municipal blocks or the location of the residential blocks, and therefore the condition or the changes rather in the subdivision and the resulting changes here for your subdivision agreement are considered minor. County Council approved the minor changes to the subdivision earlier this month, and now North Perth has that opportunity to consider the changes as well, and in a similar manner amend your subdivision agreement. And that would ensure that the agreement between the municipality and the developer include the correct references to blocks and phases in the various schedules to your agreement, and will certainly facilitate execution of the stages of development as the subdivision is built out. So I can answer specific questions if you have them. There's references as Clerk Burfeld's mentioned in, I believe it's 4 of the schedules, and those are all changes reflecting block numbers and phase numbers for those various pieces. And I will, with that, give it back over to you, Mayor Kaysenberg.
Thanks, Ms. McMillan. Councillors, I think, before we grant the floor to delegation from which, and we may not need to do that, I'll ask if you have questions first. And then if we need to, by your consent, we can try in our delegates. So any councillors with questions on this matter? Are we seeing any indication of same? No? Okay, so we're not seeing any indication that there are questions from council at this point. As Clerk Berfeld said, the actual bylaw text needs to be amended and we'll adjust that at signing. But there's the enabling resolution for that, which reads as follows, that bylaw number 118-2021, being a bylaw to amend the subdivision agreement with Talmadge Holdings Limited, be introduced, read and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one.
I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andreessen, will you do the seconding honors here?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay, last chance for discussion and or debate. Questions too could be at this point, if any. Right, I'm not seeing any indication of that, so let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. My vote is not popping up. It's Leanne Andreessen.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. So with that, that is carried. Thank you very much. Gentlemen who came to attend for the purposes of maybe answering questions, thank you for attending. We hope you have a great rest of your night. And Ms. McMullen, thanks as always for your explanation.
Thank you.
That allows us to move along to item, let's move here, item 3 on our agenda. 5.3, sorry, reports from the programs department. We have no reports coming from that department this evening. Similarly, for item 5.4, that's from our facilities department. We have no reports from that department this evening either. Next then is item 5.5, reports from our finance department and treasury. As item 5.5.1, finance staff has brought forward for council review the accounts as of this day, November 1st, 2021. I'll note that some councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item and will absent themselves from consideration and voting. Are there any questions about this item for staff? Are we seeing anything there, Clerk Berfeld? Okay, I have a resolution, council, for consideration. It reads as that the following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total on the bottom line is $1,222,391.36. Councillor Duncan, can I call on you to serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this matter? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And with those who have abstained, that means this is carried. Thank you very much, Council. And now we turn our attention to 5.6, reports from the Environmental Services Department. There are no reports from them for this evening, which I would say generally means that they're working hard, and it's a good news story as always. Let's turn then to item 5.7, reports from our Manager of Operations. It looks like Mr. Couch and team are the workhorses tonight at this council meeting. For item 5.7.1, sorry, council is provided with responses to various suggestions made by council and others pertaining to the traffic experiment at Wallace and Main in the intersection in downtown Listowel. I think at this point, I'll call on Manager of Operations Linda Couch to bring council up to date on corporate response and the request for a pilot project extension. Mr. Couch, the floor is yours, and if you wish to call consultants, please do so. I won't intervene. Mr. Couch.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg and members of council.
The report in front of you is a result of requests from last or 2 weeks ago from the council meeting that discussed and reviewed the presentation from Salvini Consulting. Julia Salvini is actually on the phone and available at the meeting to answer any questions that you have tonight as well. I provided a brief report, actually in conjunction with the reporting that was provided from that presentation from 2 weeks ago. And really, if you look at your report, what's listed as page 2 of it, there were a few bullets that were to be addressed in terms of reviewing what we discussed 2 weeks ago. And because of the weather conditions and the oncoming winter, some suggestions were understood to be the best answer for the situations with parking, for example. And we were able to get a concrete crew in and repaint the handicap spot to what would be the most easterly spot along that side of Main Street West. So that's been reinstated, as well as the 3 spots on Main Street East. They've been reinstated and repainted as well. So those were listed as bullet points for discussion from the last time we met. As well, items such as the one-way block itself, already in bylaw, the 4-way stop at Elma and Wallace, which was considered to be a very positive change, is already in bylaw and to be kept. And that's for the information of council that will remain for this period. Beyond that, we looked at the winter conditions and the ability to test the trial through the winter period. We will have to permanently mount some signs simply because they're large and they'll need to be anchored during winter conditions and plowing. We've talked about plowing already, and we'll be doing some minor changes and modifications to the intersection to prepare it for winter. The recommendation in front of you is really to do what has just been listed, change those items that we have changed, and extend the pilot in the November to April period. There were some other items that were listed as well, such as the restricted left turns, and we've got some suggestions from the consultant on that. They're not in front of you tonight. We were considering bringing those at a later time, but getting the pilot ready and winterizing it at this point, and then moving on through with the same, basically the same layout for the winter months that are ahead. So really, it's open to council in terms of the information that's been provided, and the consultant's summary as well was provided to you earlier this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. So let's have questions and first comments. Clerk Bearhouse. Councillor Behrens is first.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. This comment is probably for Lyndon. I noticed in the recommendation that you're saying that you're going to extend it till April 30th, but then you're going to provide an update report and recommend it being made permanent. If that's the case, why not just make it permanent now? Would you consider changing the motion just to say staff provide and update a report at that time? Simply because if you've already made your mind up what it's going to be, there's no point for the trial. That would just be my question comment. Thanks.
Mr. Couch.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. We discussed that quite a bit. I first discussed it with the supervisors as we made ready for winter with the trial, and then also with the consultants. And the point is understood and well taken. The winter trial would only be that, just considering how it operates in terms of the other intersections and the main block itself through winter. There's really very little difference in what we're doing with signage and permanent mounting between a temporary and a permanent situation. So we, as staff, would really have no objection to making that change in the motion if council wished it to change to that tonight.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we're seeing any other questions or comments. I think, you know, this experiment is at the will of council. If Councillor Behrens, you think that you would like to take a chance on a motion that firms up some of this and says that part of the experiment is done, that we're moving forward, then that's a call that certainly you can make if you wish to amend the resolution that we consider. We haven't put anything on the floor yet, so that's at your discretion.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I guess my point being is, are we simply extending it to see how it fares through the winter? Or are we extending it just to glean more information? Because in the recommendation, it says that the trial, you've already made your mind up that the trial is going to be permanent. So I guess I'm wondering why the extension then. To me, it's either one or the other. I personally would prefer that we simply put a period at the end of staff provide an updated report at that time, period. Just so that you haven't already made your mind up prior to going through the winter trial. It may bring some different things, some different aspects we're not aware of. And I think that's probably why they said, provide an update to the trial. I guess it's up to the rest of council. I just personally don't like the wording of the recommendation. I'm not saying which way I'm on for the trial, but I just don't like the wording of the recommendation. I think you've already made your mind up quite simply, and it's in the recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I see where you are going with that. To me, I think the intent, and let me just check with Mr. Couch, the intent of staff is that this is a continuation of the experiment. That we don't want to prejudge winter results or results that may come from adjustments in timing that have been sort of suggested related to pedestrian movements in the intersection. We don't want to prejudge that until we have data that supports us, and that data, if I understand the resolution, intends to come before this council sometime in early May of next year. Have I got that roughly right? Mr. Couch? I think you're on mute still.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The mayor's answered the questions or the items that I was going to address, and that we were going to look at cycle time changes as well for pedestrian movement, and that would be part of reporting back. So that test would study some of these other items, as the mayor had mentioned, and then come back in the late spring with a final recommendation. We're expecting it's going to work well. We were just looking at slight adjustments and reporting on those.
So I think I see actually the wisdom in Mr. Barron's efficiency here, which is to take out the thing about with the recommendation regarding the trial being made permanent, because it does sound like it prejudges the intent of the trial. Perhaps we would be better off just to strike those words with the recommendation regarding the trial being made permanent from the resolution, with an understanding that you're bringing us an update report at the end of the period and shortly thereafter, enough time for you to process your data and compile the report. And at that point, council can deem what it wants to do with this. Does that seem reasonable to you first, Mr. Couch, in terms of adjusting the wording? You see any reason not to?
Thank you. No, I don't see that. The motion to extend the trial would work well with or without an understanding of permanence after that.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Barons, is it sounding right to you still then? If we just put a full stop there?
That's fine with me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on council object strenuously to putting a full stop there and removing the clause with the recommendation regarding the trial being made permanent? If you see a reason why you should object, let me know. So now we've managed to revise the resolution before putting it on the floor. I think that's probably a wise thing. Makes things a little more efficient. Anyone else on council have questions or comments before we put the slightly revised resolution on the floor? Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I guess my question is, Lyndon, we talked about that no left turn there going back. Wallace says coming in from the east there. You can see that sign coming up to it, but when you get to the stop bar with a truck, that sign is not visible. And you talked about you were going to move that up onto the light bar, so that when you're stopped and when you're looking at the red light, you can also see that sign. I think that's where that sign has to be. So would this enable you to go ahead to get your tools or your material to move that sign up on that light bar? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we've actually ordered those signs and we're awaiting them to be delivered, and we're looking at a way of making that install happen shortly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Coach, do you expect that the pilot or the experiment will directly proceed to deal with the no left turns on the two streets that have been mentioned? Or do you wish to come back to council seeking permission, I suppose, rather than forgiveness for that?
I would seek permission. Thank you. I would seek permission on that and bring a second motion. Although the consultant, Julia, is here, we have discussed it. That could be implemented now. It was suggested that it only happens through the peak hours, and those are listed in the report. We were going to wait on that and bring it forward later, but it could be brought forward now as well.
Okay, I don't wish to rush that process unnecessarily, especially if you intend to make these modifications and then collect some more data and then make another set of modifications and collect data, which is the nature of experimentation. Right? So I won't prejudge your plan. I think I just wanted to clarify for council that what the intent was with regards to that no left turn action on those two streets. Any other questions or comments? So we're not seeing anything at this point. Let me bring this resolution into the record. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth extend the one-way block trial on Wallace Avenue South from Main Street to Elma Street for 6 months, from November 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2022, and that staff provide an update report at that time. That Schedule F, the traffic bylaw 47-PW-2000 be amended to delete quote Main Street West at tracks and tracts with a T, and add Main Street West South Side at Wood and Leg Custom Wood Furniture. I call on Councillor Anstead. Will you be our mover for that one?
No, I would not be moving this, Mayor Kaysenberg.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you be our mover for this one?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Rothwell, would you serve as seconder?
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you. Okay, discussion and debate. Anyone? Are we seeing anything, Clerk Bearfelt's indication of desire to speak at this point? Okay, we're not seeing any indication or decision here. Let's have that vote. Okay, so that is carried 8-1. Thank you. Let's move forward then. We're getting into the engineering and drain zone. Our meeting literally feels like a drain zone. Let's item 5.7.2. This one invites council to appoint an engineer from our approved vendor list to investigate the possible improvements to the Howick number 11 municipal drain. I believe Mr. Richardson, our drainage superintendent, is here to make any comments he thinks will support our action. Welcome, Scott.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. No comments on these first three reports. They're just pretty simple. Looking just to appoint engineers on the first three. Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully council understands those comments will apply to the first three actions that we have here. Very good. And I think this is the one that Councillor Behrens has declared a your interest in. So let's have a look at the resolution for this one. So again, item 5.7.2, resolution reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with section 78 and 4 of the Drainage Act, appoints Spreed Associates Limited to investigate possible improvements to the Howick number 11 municipal drain. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion, debate, questions at this time? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next one is 5.7.3. This one is same intent to appoint an engineer from our approved vendor list for the Wilson Municipal Drain. And I have a resolution for consideration that reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act, appoint Spreed Associates Limited to investigate the possible improvements to the Wilson Municipal Drain. I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion, debate, or questions for that one? All right, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. And the next one is 5.7.4. Another drain. The resolution as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act, appoint Dietrich Engineering Limited to investigate the possible improvements to the Broughton Municipal Drain. Councillor Anstett, will you serve as a mover for that one?
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion, debate, or questions? Not seeing any, so let's have that vote. Councillor Johnston, we're not seeing your vote. What say you?
I'm in favor. My vote didn't pop up. I'm in favor.
You. Thank you. So with that, that is carried as well. Next, a 5.7.5, Council is invited to appoint an engineer from our vendor list to investigate the possible improvements to the Brant Municipal Drain. And let me read the resolution for this one into the record. And the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act, proceed with the request for improvement to the Brant Municipal Drain. Further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoint Dietrich Engineering to investigate possible improvements to the Brant Municipal Drain. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our seconder for that one?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion, debate, or questions here? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Councillor Johnston, what say you?
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. That is carried with that vote. That's carried. Thank you very much. Fight item 5. Let's see where we are here. Move these through quickly. 5.7.6. Is that where I am, Pat? Okay, so 5.7.6 is about a new municipal drain. And we think this one maybe warrants a little bit of explanation from Mr. Richardson. So Scott, we invite you to tell us a little bit about this. I think this is the first time in my mayorship this one's happened. So Scott, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, this petition was submitted to the municipality under Section 4 the Drainage Act by Peter Schill. He's the owner of lots 3 and 4, concession 10. It's in the Wallace ward. The owner has experienced extended periods of ponding due to heavy rain events and is drowning out crops. The owner has previously installed a large ag tile to try and capture surface runoff with minimal results. The private tile does not have adequate enough capacity to accommodate these flows. Most of the surface water flows from Perth County Line 91 and the lands to the north of Line 91. The watershed that's proposed is about 145 acres. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Richardson before we consider this resolution? Council. Okay, we're not seeing any. So a little excitement for me, of course, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act, proceed with the petition for a new municipal drain. Further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoint Spreet Associates to investigate the area requiring drainage and prepare a new drain report. Councillor Johnston, would you like to serve as mover for that one?
Yes, I would love to move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder for that?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion, debate, or further questions about this one? Let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. My vote didn't register. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ernst. So with that, that's carried. And yay, new drain. That's kind of cool. All right, let's turn to item 5.7.7. Yeah, exactly. All right. So this one, we're invited to authorize signing an encroachment agreement with 1984686 Ontario Limited, known as a business as DG ProTech, that will allow said corporation to use municipal lands attached to its current owned property for indicated parking purposes. I believe Mr. Couch is the right person to speak to this one, so welcome back to the table, Mr. Couch.
Thank you. DG's ProTech had approached regarding expansion of their parking facilities. And in order to do that on what is the non-developed road allowance for Mowat Street or Mowat Ave, an encroachment agreement would need to be put in place. The nearby church has the same kind of encroachment agreement. It does allow for either party to move out of that agreement at any point. And we reviewed it and visited it on site. There'll be no impact to the existing road allowance area, which is just a grassland that is cut for the future if they were to develop that space. So the recommendation from staff is to move forward and allow the encroachment agreement to happen. And yes, the photo or the image shows you approximately where it would lie. It would not be adjacent to the municipal street, Maitland. So it would be set back somewhat, but it would allow additional parking for clients in that area. In the future, the Mowat corridor could be developed for potentially a pedestrian trail. This is being reviewed under the master plan, but these changes would allow for that in the future as well. So it's for the consideration of council to allow a gravel parking lot expansion and the encroachment agreement to be granted for that parking at DJ's Auto Tech.
Thanks, Mr. Couch. Questions or first comments? Mr. Rothwell first.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Lyndon, for your report. My question is specifically regarding financial implications. I note you say that that will be at the expense of the business, but are there not costs to register this agreement if it is approved? And should those costs not also be DG ProTech's? Thank you.
I have spoken to them about any costs that were to create the parking lot. I'm not sure if the registration of the easement has a cost. I could maybe defer to the clerk to ask if there'll be an additional fee that I may not be aware of. Maybe they could comment.
Okay, so just to the question, Councillor Rothwell, Clerk Barefoot is saying that there would be a registration fee of some sort, and I would assume that this will be assumed based on the nature of the work in the agreement.
Yes, I would add that they understood there would be incidental fees. They did not, had there been a legal fee, they were willing to pay that as well. So I can bring that back to them. Any kind of incidental fee that would be added to this should not be a problem in terms of their wanting the parking lot and actually the timing as well. They'd like to establish it prior to winter conditions.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Deputy Mayor Callum is next.
Yes, through you, Mayor Kasenberg, to Clerk Beerfelds, for the record, I'm going to declare pecuniary interest on this, even though I don't think there's financial gain or anything for me. They are a client of mine, so for the record, I'm declaring pecuniary interest. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Callum, and that will be noted now at this point. And you've already declared up 13.1, so I don't have to worry further about that. Any other questions or comments about this one? Councillor Anstead is next.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. Thanks, Lyndon, for the report. No real major concerns. You just had mentioned in your previous comments that they wanted to start this, get this in place before winter. Did they give you a timeline on when this would be completed? Thank you.
Yeah, pending the outcome of tonight's meeting, they could start work as early as next week. And in fact, they are looking, they're neighbors of H&H Construction, and they had already discussed with them construction in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I believe. But I can confirm with them, but it would be shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further that you're seeing in terms of questions or first comments, Okay, so we're not seeing anything further. So I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows, that bylaw number 117-2021, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an encroachment agreement with 1984686 Ontario Inc., DG's ProTech, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Seiler, can I call on you to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any further discussion, debate, or questions? Okay, we're not seeing any, so well, maybe there is. Okay, hold on. Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks, Mayor Todd. Just further to my question, could we please add an amendment here that that any and all costs associated with registration or any other legal costs be at the expense of the applicant, DG ProTech? Thank you.
Okay, so you are moving an amendment to the motion that's on the floor that proposes that any costs associated with registration of this agreement be absorbed by the proponent. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my motion for amendment. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we have an amendment proposed. Is there a councillor who would second that? Just indicate through the chat function. Anyone second that? Okay. Councillor Duncan. We'll let Councillor Duncan be our seconder on that one. And all right, so on the amendment on the floor, is there any discussion or debate? Okay, so Clerk Barefelds is catching up with us, I trust. So we're going to have a vote on the amendment first. Just hang tight while we get the signal from her to go ahead. Are we ready? Okay, so Clerk Barefelds is advising me that I should just ask for a manual vote here. Are there any opposed to the amendment to the original resolution? please indicate through the chat function. Okay, so we're not seeing anything at this point, Clerk Fairfield? On the amendment? No, that was to be the seconder. Yeah, those were the seconder. So we're not seeing anyone expressing a no. So we'll call the amendment carried. So we'll bring back the main motion with the amended text. The clerk is not in your head. That should read that bylaw number 117-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an encroachment agreement with 1984686 Ontario Inc. DG's Protect be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of corporation. And further that the proponent is responsible for any restriction or legal costs associated with executing this agreement. To that effect. All right. So we have a revised motion on the floor. Any discussion or debate on that one? Okay, you can probably trigger this one, right? You have that. Okay, so let's have that vote. And that is carried with 2 abstentions from pecuniary interest and absence. All right. That brings us along to item 5.8, report from the fire department. No report, but we do have a matter looming 2 agenda items from now to tidy up some business with the fire department. So we'll get to that momentarily. That brings us to item 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or committees? To request the opportunity to speak, please so indicate in the chat function at this time. Reports. This is about reports, council. Anyone wishing to? Councillor Seiler, would you like to take the floor?
Yes, Mayor Todd, it's just something that I'd like to bring up with, if I could. In the hamlet of Britain, I was out there on Saturday morning with, I happened to pick up the Britain load there, and it was a dark, rainy morning, and I came into Britain from the Conybear Fire, making a right onto the Britain Road there to go to the Robinsons. Very dark. There's no lighting at that in Britain at all. And as I was making I made my turn, there was a guy that was walking across in front of me that I just caught at the last minute. So I think that there's a bit of an issue out there with the lighting. And I understand that there is a lot of people out there in the hamlet that crosses the road, uses the crossing of the road and whatnot. And I'm not sure if there ever was any lighting there, but Britain is very dark. So this is a county road. So I don't know if Lyndon can give me any guidance on that, which way we should go about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Seiler. So Councillor Seiler is asking for consideration, I think, to be given to an action either by the corporation or the county, depending on who's responsible, and perhaps a report or just suggestion for action. So, Mr. Couch, did you want to make some comments about this one to help us figure out what the next move might be?
We've had similar requests in the past on roads that weren't under our authority, and I can certainly talk to the county, however, about location, because it impacts both our crossroad and their road. And I'll work with the clerk to make sure they're properly notified through this item. But I'll give them a call and I'll be talking with them about the details of how we're sharing the road and the lighting itself.
Thank you. So the clerk believes that we should ask all council to agree to this request for staff action on this particular file. Therefore, Councillor Seiler, I'll take your question and your expressed desire here as intent for direction to staff to collaborate with the county and other parties towards improving lighting at the primary intersection in Britain. which affects both the county and a municipal road. Is that fair enough? Is that what you intend, Councillor Seiler?
Yes, that would be a good start. And if they even want to have I don't know if there's a warrant for a pedestrian crosswalk there for as I know there's a lot of kids are crossing the road there and whatnot. So I understand. So I don't know. I think it needs to be addressed. It's at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have two votes from Brittany. Councillor Rothwell, would you like to second that one?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have motion that directs staff to this end. Any discussion made on this one? Doesn't look like we're seeing any expression of interest there. So just wait for the clerk to see whether we're ready for this motion. Looks like we are. Okay, let's have that vote. We're missing one. Okay, Councillor Johnson. Okay, so with that, that's carried. Thank you. Any other business for council's attention under item 6 on our agenda? Reports from staff. Councillor Andreessen is next.
Hi, thank you through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Traffic's been a big part of our discussions lately at council. And I'm just wondering, I'm kind of confused about when the for our whole municipality would be part of a future discussion. I'm not sure if that is coming up or if that's something that perhaps we could have a report on. If we perhaps get a comment from you or from Mr. Couch on that, that'd be great. Thanks. And I have one more thing, but I just wanted to ask that one first. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Andreessen. Your audio went a little bit choppy right at the heart of what you were asking. So could you just summarize your ask again?
Sure, I apologize. So I know we've been talking a lot about traffic as a municipality at a lot of council meetings. I'm very interested in the larger vision, the master plan for our municipality. So I wondered, and I'm a bit confused whether that master plan is in the works or if we're going to have a future discussion or if requesting a report on that would be helpful. And I know that Mr. Couch is with us, so perhaps either you or Mr. Couch could talk about a future report on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Andreessen, for clarifying. As I said, the audio just went a little choppy. Mr. Couch, did you want to share some news about the process at this point? Because I know there's something imminent.
Thank you. We are actually meeting tomorrow to discuss the final public engagement step, which would be a public meeting that would talk about findings and some recommendations and just a general overview of the master plan process and where it sits today. And again, still targeting a December draft report coming from the consultant for the master plan itself. So that public meeting is kind of the beginning of the end in terms of final recommendations and findings, going to the public for final comment, and then bringing the final report in December to council. And I'll be able to update that timing literally tomorrow after we have that meeting and set those final dates.
Okay, Mr. Couch, I thought I saw, I'll come back to you in a minute, Councillor Andreessen. I thought I saw a public announcement about a PDC related to the transportation master plan for 10 days out kind of thing. Is that still in the works or is that being amended? Did I misunderstand?
No, you didn't. I'm trying to find that date as we're talking. I had been talking with the other part of the consulting team about posting something on our website, and I believe we've got a date, and perhaps before the meeting's over, I can post that in the chat box in terms of confirming what that date is for you for that public meeting. Again, we're confirming some things with it tomorrow, but I'll work on that and you can move forward.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure whether council was sent notice of that PIC or not, but we'll await your feedback on that, Mr. Couch. And Councillor Andreessen, just take note that it's starting to heat up. Maybe that's the right message, is that things are coming forward imminently. You had another question, I believe.
Yes, thank you. That's helpful. Thank you. And through you, Mayor Kasenberg, something else that I want to kind of ask around the master plan for perhaps a future report is some concerns that I've been hearing from citizens around the intersection at line 87 and Highway 23. And I realize that this is a provincial highway, I believe it's provincial. And the issues I'm hearing from citizens are the time that it's taking to turn or cross that intersection at typical times at rush hour. So at, early in the morning between 8 and 9 in the morning, and also later in the day from about, 4 to 5. And reports I'm getting from citizens are saying that it's taking up to 10 minutes to sometimes get into that intersection. And so there potentially could be problems for people having the urge to move through it, and then this could cause accidents. And I don't know whether the master plan will address this or not, or if this is something separate, because the fact it is, and like I said, I think it's a provincial highway. So would that be addressed in that report or that master plan, or is that something else? Thanks.
I'll direct that to Mr. Couch.
Okay, thank you. First, the tentative date for the public meeting would be November 10th, so coming up shortly, and that's to be confirmed tomorrow, and then we'll post information on it. That's the master plan itself. Secondly, yes, other options for truck bypasses and other changes for the future, looking at the 20 to 30 year build out, will be brought forward through the master plan. And certainly that intersection and those roadways could be part of the options that are introduced there. If they are, then it becomes part of our planning process, and it would be reflected when we deal with the Ministry of Transportation in terms of future growth and future changes. It would also give us a lot more momentum in terms of dealing with them and trying to develop the roadway ourselves, but also for them to partner in the intersection changes. North Perth has gone through this process before as they built the roundabout at 23 and 86. This would be a similar process, but it would have the momentum of it being part of the master plan for transportation as well. And I would note that the MTO was a stakeholder in that process and we're involved with it. So they're already participating in it.
So Councillor Andreessen, I think the message is stay tuned a little bit longer. And then if there's something missing, you're certainly welcome to bring that back to the attention of staff. But thanks for bringing the concerns forward. Councillor Anstead, say hi to Everett for me. Okay, we have a bylaw for our consideration next, but let's go through item 7. We have received no additional items of correspondence which require our action. So that brings us to 8, this bylaw. As I promised, something about fire here, and as item 8.1, council is invited to finish the process of our engagement of a new fire chief through passing a bylaw appointing Jenny Pape to this role. Are there any questions about this matter for the clerk before we consider this? We're not seeing any, so I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows: that bylaw number 116-2021, being a bylaw to appoint the North Perth Fire Chief, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. Let the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I call on Councillor Anstead to be our mover for that.
Yes, I would move that motion, and I'd just like to well, actually, I'll just wait. Thank you.
And can I call on Councillor Barnes to be our seconder?
Yes, I would be pleased to second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate or comments? It sounded like we're going to call on Neil again before this is done. Councillor Enstedt.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you, I apologize. I just wanted to officially welcome Chief Pape to the North Perth Fire Department, and looking forward to working with her, and that she's going to continue the excellent work that Chief Smith did for many years here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Enstedt. And we see that Chief Pape has turned her camera on. Thank you for allowing us to see you and everyone to recognize you. I think you're well known here already. Any further discussion or comments at this point? We have a bylaw here to vote on, and then we can cheer. All right. If I'm not seeing anything further, let's have that vote. Deputy Mayor, oh, we got it. There it is. Okay, so that is unanimous. That is carried. Thank you, Council. I'm sure you all wish to give a brief round of applause. I'm delighted to have Jenny with us. And Jenny, big warm welcome from North Perth. Return home, sorts. All right. Let's have a look at agenda item number 9. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion this evening? We're not seeing anything there. Agenda item number 10. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Usual process for requesting the floor, if you would, council or staff. We're not seeing anything deliberate. Obviously, we are coming into the season of remembering, and so there will be activities on November 11th, I believe. Both the Aylward Cenotaph and the Listowel Cenotaph. More obviously will be available in terms of information next week, but we're starting to see the signs of poppies, and I encourage all to take a cause and pause this season to think about the great sacrifices that have been made to ensure our freedoms and the freedoms of many others. Thank you for that. Let's move to agenda item number 11. We have no matters for consideration in a closed session meeting of council tonight. That means for agenda item number 12, we have nothing to return and report about, which kicks us down to agenda item number 13. For 13.1, I have the draft of the confirmatory bylaw number 119-2021, which reads as follows. Bylaw number 119-2021 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Now I have to choose carefully here. Councillor Duncan, can I call on you to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Johnston, will you? No, he declared. Oh, let's see, almost got trapped. Councillor Rothwell, will you be our seconder for that one?
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. This is confirmatory though, so there were some. Councillor Enstedt, I assume that it was your intention not to vote on this item.
Correct. Yes, I shouldn't have voted. I apologize. Sorry.
We'll fix that. We'll fix that. Okay, thank you. And all right, thank you, Council. And so we have completed the deliberations and taken action on the business that has come before us tonight. I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 8:10 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, November 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstett, will you serve as our seconder for that one?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. As we know, that one's not debatable, so let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. My e-scribe isn't coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. And so with that, we have unanimity to adjourn. Thank you, Council. That motion is carried. This Council will meet again next week at this time, Monday, November 8th at 7 p.m. and again by digital technologies. Until that point, this meeting is adjourned. Everyone has a great week. Take care.